All right, why don't you flip to our first slide? I think a good place to start is with a quick review of the town halls. We do once a month. This is December, so we've had 11 of them. Many of the people that helped us are on here, so let me take a moment to thank them. But mostly I want you to look at this slide from a perspective of topics that we covered. If we're doing our job right, the topics should bubble up from the membership as to what they want to talk about and what they think is important. So as we get into this kind of group-wide discussion today, run it through the filter of what you think people want to be talking about next year. And yeah, it can be the tried and true managing remote workforce, or it could be stuff that's a little more on the tech side. So we covered obviously. I think Jason kicked us off with standing up a new remote contact center, and then employee engagement. That was Vicky. Thank you, Vicky. And training in the contact center. Amos and Amaya, you're both on today. Thank you. David Reed, managing and measuring. Those things never go away, and they're only going to get more confusing once we introduce new technology, as usually happens. Fred and Adam. Adam was, he's our chat GPT guru and expert. He navigated us through that. That was fun. Coaching to service. Vicky and Ami were with Northridge, worked on that town hall in June. Kathleen on embracing humanity and kind of the people side of things. Dan Smitley with, I'm sorry, I had that backwards. She was in resilience, if you remember. And that was a fun one because we all kind of just listened, and she had plenty to share, and we'll be doing more on it as healthcare and the wealth of our employees continues to be a challenge. So that'll definitely be on the list for next year. And then Dan was talking about the people side, and obviously that's going to continue in managing the contact center and customer care next year. Kelly, who could not be on today, talking about CX and her journey through the U.S. Postal Service and into semi-retirement, as she has her own practice now. And then Michelle Martinez, I think Michelle's on today. She did a fantastic job of bringing AI in an appropriate manner to the conversation, which is, encouraging all of us to look into it on an individual basis, because it'll give us a better vision as to what's to come for our operations. And John, again, smart move getting out before AI takes your job. I see where this is at. It just clicked in my small brain, so I got it. And then last month, Nate Brown and Ryan Bradley both walking us through some of the CX and measurements and things that we're all dealing with. Those conversations are not easy to lead. So again, I want to thank all the people that did that. I suspect this year you'll be seeing more from our Academy members as that program continues to evolve. But I did want to take a moment and thank all the people and all the participants and all the questions and thus all the content that came from those town halls. Our game plan is to continue the town halls monthly, but to complement those with field events. And Jillian, do we have a slide regarding that?
Yep. So I'm going to hop
into it the next slide?
It is the next slide. Next few slides, actually.
Wow, that was lucky.
So just want to talk a bit about regional networking events. I think we had some really awesome town halls this year, and I would love to see over the next year or two our regional events grow into being on that same sort of monthly basis if possible. And that won't be possible without the help of everyone on this call and our CCNG community. So just to recap, we had our first two regional networking events since COVID this past year, one in August, hosted by Alcon, which was facilitated by J. Dean Shaver and Bill Walker. Thank you so much to Alcon. And then our other one hosted at U-Haul, which was facilitated by Vicky and Kirby. I know you're both on this call. Thank you so much for doing that, and we hope to work with you both more. I'm sure Vicky and Kirby would be happy to talk about their experiences on the next slide, but I just wanted to shout out our two great events and talk kind of about what the goals of these events are moving forward. So if you're interested in volunteering as a facilitator or as a location host, or both, which is what Alcon did, you just have an idea of what that entails. So the overall goal of these events is to connect members based in the same region and expand their networks, as well as exchange valuable knowledge in a more interpersonal manner. We also hope that our facilitators, got to move all the lovely faces of people because covering some of my text. We hope that all these facilitators would help provide a possible location. Again, that is if possible. If you work at a site that would be happy to host this event. If not, we'll work with other people in your area to find a location. You'll help facilitate the meeting by managing all on-site activities. And you also can act as a speaker if you would like for one of our main sessions as either a solo or group discussion. Our regional events are really valuable. They go from really big solo presentation to very small breakout sessions. So people get a lot of time to network and get to know each other. Overall for our 2023, no dates are taken yet, which means whatever works for your schedules, we can work with and make these events happen. If we are currently planning our Q1 and Q2 events, so I don't have dates for you yet. But if there's a time at any point in 2024, even if it's next winter, that you would like to volunteer and help facilitate an event, please email me or Slack me. My email is listed right there. It's just jillian@ccng.com. And I'd love to talk to you and send more information and start planning these events because I'd love to see us doing one every month, just like our town halls. And Vicki and Kirby, if you want to share. Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah,
Vicki and Kirby, if you want to share anything about your hosting experience, that would be super helpful too.
Okay, well, I'll jump in, Kirby. It was really great. We had, I don't know, 25 people or so there. It was held at U-Haul, and U-Haul gave a tour, but they also talked about a lot of their transformation that they had done with their new app that reduced people waiting at the side of the road for a repair for a U-Haul truck, that they reduced it into minutes instead of like 45 minutes. And they sort of walked us through that process, which was pretty interesting. Kirby talked, I also talked on ChatGPT and some of the operational challenges that we need to ask ourselves about as we're driving toward more automated technologies. There was some really new companies there, which was great. And then there were some that were members as well. And it was a great time of networking. Kirby, do you have anything to add?
Sure. Yeah, I thought one of the great things, I was very pleased to see how much the people that were there engaged with one another on whatever topics they wanted to discuss. And the reason that stood out to me is because, again, first time of in-person at events in a few years, and a lot of the people there that I talked to and met, it was their first experience attending something by CCNG, and particularly again in person. And so you just never know, the makeup of an audience sometimes, how they're going to interact. But I thought the group really jumped in. There was a lot of good conversation at the various groups, and it made me feel good walking away from it, that there's definitely an appetite there to continue these.
So to summarize what you both just said is it's awesome and everyone should volunteer to host one.
That's what I heard.
But no, it really is great. And you'll get to work with David and I through the whole planning process. So if you are interested or know of a site that might be willing to host, please reach out and we're happy to plan beyond our Q1 and Q2 as well. But these are just our most prominent times for next year right now.
Let me add a couple things before we go to the poll question. We realized that the pandemic changed a lot of things, not the least of which was it put a halt to all of our field events. And maybe it's not the right time to bring this up, but Amos and I were talking about it a little earlier. For those of you who don't know, Adam brought it to my attention, I think, as well, and maybe even Matt Armbruster, but the group formerly known as PACE, you may know them as the American Telemarketing Association or the American Telemanagement Association. Over the 40-plus year history, they're closing their doors. And one of the things that they attributed that to was the pandemic. And so I know enough about that organization that nearly 100% of their activities, and for those of you who've participated in them, feel free to chime in, were face-to-face. And whether they couldn't weather the storm or whatever, we pivoted nicely to this format and are now looking to add back the face-to-face. I only bring that up because I've heard a lot lately about people saying we really value FaceTime. And I don't hear people saying, I want to go to the meetings. So it really isn't the meeting, maybe the way the last time you attended one, Amos, 1-800-Flowers and more currently BOK Financial. Lauren, I know you've been involved. Maya, I know you've been involved. John, you've been involved. So David Reed, the other past structures, that's not what they said. They're not saying put that back in place. What they're saying is, I want to get back to meeting people face to face. So some of the things that we recognize have to be adapted. The meeting structure. So you're in Tulsa. We haven't been in Tulsa in God who knows how long, Amos. Probably not going to draw a large crowd. But what's wrong with a 90-minute coffee and exchange of ideas? So the structure looks different. We mentioned on-site versus being in a neutral site. The attendee mix. Yes, we want to Kirby's point, to drive conversation. And in driving conversation, generally speaking, you need to have the lion's share of the folks or people that are looking for information, not necessarily have all the answers. So that means that we need to have the right balance, and we'll manage that on the back end. But they don't have to be members. They don't even have to know how to spell CCNG. If they're in this space in any capacity, they should be welcome to contribute, participate. So that's a change from pre-pandemic. And how we go about that, focusing on networking. Again, nobody came to me and said, boy, I missed that agenda, or I missed that whatever. But they did say I missed the people, the community. And that's the transition I think CCNG has been making and will continue to make, is that we're about community and bringing people in and encouraging that interaction. So networking is not something we take a pause to go do for 5 minutes during the bathroom break. It becomes the primary reason for getting together. Subject matter is pretty much keeping things in the lanes, and everything else is everything else. So we just want to make sure it's valuable opportunity for people to exchange, and keeping that at top of mind over some other agenda that you may have seen in the past. And then lastly are the topics. Obviously, we've seen this. If you don't keep people on a topic matter, then they'll get off topic and they'll start talking about the Dallas Cowboys or something, which not that that's not important, but may not have been the reason that you chose to get together. So your feedback and your willingness to help in any capacity, be it topics, be it people that should participate, be it locations, be it, hey, I'll help out in my town or whatever, it's all welcome. And I can tell you that we are going to be looking for leaders from our academy group. And I understand not all of our academy members are located in hotbeds, but that doesn't mean we can't work it out where we're having our academy members drive things like Kirby, like Vicky, and others. So just some things to think about on the meeting. Sorry, Jillian, but I wanted to throw that into the recorded message.
No, you're good. I actually just want to add one thing to what you said before we move on or have other people jump in. David brought up a really good point that one thing that is different in this post-pandemic in-person event space, that we are having more attendees who aren't necessarily CCNG members yet, but this is one of our really valuable marketing techniques. So it's been a lot harder over the pandemic to increase our membership. So we're really hoping that you all, as these CCNG liaisons and possible facilitators of these events, can really share the benefit of CCNG with these potential new members as they're coming to these in-person events and getting to talk with you all in a more personal manner. So,
and this poll was courtesy of Vicky, so thank you, Vicky. Okay, so the first poll question is: if your contact center is going to explore in investing in software and technology in 2024, what areas are you looking at? And then you can pick as many options as you want. So we have WFM, chat, email, omni-channel in the cloud, knowledge management, chatbot, IVR, agent assist, CRM, quality.
And I'll add, if you're retiring, you might want to be looking at it from a point of view of, I'm leaving, but this is what I see on the horizon. If you're consulting, you might say, I'm seeing a fair amount of this, that, and the other, and check all that apply. If it truly is your center, then feel free to offer up. No one's going to be selling you something based upon your answer. So we're just looking to maybe get some topic guidance as we go forward. So again, Vicky, thank you for throwing this out there.
And everyone can feel free, while still filling out the poll, please jump in with comments. The rest of this meeting is really going to be just a discussion driven. It's going to be discussion. So please start jumping in with anything you want to add or elaborate on, whether that be in the chat or on the camera.
Okay, well, I've got 15 questions, so just let me know when I can start.
You
Great.
did say you would be jingled up, so
I
that's
know, I
you know,
know.
your square on my screen, Kay, is so small it looks like there's like a driver's license behind you. So it looks like you've got a fake ID thing going. I like it.
I do.
Yes.
I do.
Fire away.
And I don't know if anyone, I mean, I truly do have a bunch of questions, but the first one is I have gotten more requests to write processes for suicide calls and also sexually harassed calls lately that our call center agents are getting. And I don't know if other people are experiencing that or if you can talk about how perhaps your call center or you as a consultant deal with it, but it's been inundating me on people trying to figure out how to manage these types of calls in the call center.
Mm.
I think some of it they said was, post COVID and all of the stress that people are under is that we're just getting more of those types. And it's general call centers. Yes, one of them is a healthcare call center, but it's other call centers too.
Wow.
So in other words, somebody's calling, a toll-free number somewhere and they get someone that answers and then they just start opening up. It has nothing to do with that particular
Correct.
business.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
Well, I know Nate Brown kind of mentioned this, and he's been really passionate about this over the last, year. Has been this U.S. Surgeon General came out with a study about loneliness, and they said that it's actually at an epidemic level, and that's potentially a result of all the, work from home, people being isolated, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Are there not some, in some cases, some legal ramifications? Well, maybe not legal, but ethical ramifications in terms of potential notification of authorities when you get someone like that on the line?
That's what we've been trying to deal with is
Yeah.
creating the process map that not only gets them the help, whether it's a suicide caller. I think, and I don't know how many of you deal with the callers who are sexually harassing your agents and how you deal with those. That's a whole other one that I've been getting a lot of. How do people deal with that? The suicide, yeah, you're right. There's a reporting mechanism that to put in place. And we've got, we can transfer them to the mental health advocates. And even because our call centers are virtual and because they're not necessarily in the area where the call is coming from, we have a database that's called Nina. And basically, you can figure out the local 911 center for wherever that caller is because you can't dial 911 on an 800 number.
Yeah.
So that's one thing we had to put in place is the Nina database, and that's what fire departments and ambulances all use to try and figure out what the locale is. But I would love to know if anybody has built a process on the sexually harassed agent, how they handle it.
The very first contact center that I worked in was a suicide hotline. And so it was pretty common for us to alert authorities and have them trace down the call, find the person.
Has that technology changed in your view since then, Lauren?
I'm sure it has. It was many, many years ago, but we were under no legal obligation not to do that. In fact, we probably were more under legal obligation to do that. Yeah.
David Reed, did you see any of that at Disney?
Yeah, no, not so much the suicide stuff, but one thing that I have seen an increase of in the call centers that I work with is the need for people to not be focused on the average handle time stat. So we coach our agents now that if you get someone that's a lot of our call centers deal with elderly and healthcare related issues and stuff. So we definitely have taken a lot of the pressure off some of our agents that if they get someone and they realize that this person is extremely lonely and just is needing to visit about something for a few minutes, that we give them that ability to do so. And so that's one change I think we've made, and versus always being so focused on driving your handle time down to keep costs low. So that's one related area that I think we've done jumped into.
And that's great. There was one call center that I loved their answer to. A woman called in and was talking about it's a relational type of call center where they deal with the same consumers all the time. And they were talking about how do you maintain call control, not getting them off, like you said, within a certain amount of time. But how do you do a call control where you can pivot? And one of the greatest ones that I heard was a consumer called in and she was talking about how her husband was just deceased, and they talked about it for a while, and the agent was perfect. She said, boy, you have got so much on your mind right now and so much to do. Let's get focused on why you called so you can get back to those very important things. I'm here to help you with that. And I thought, what an empathetic way to transition from caring to solving.
Well, and I think training on the empathy side of it is really, really important. And that's something we've been starting to do more and more on. And it's one of our key elements is that our agents show empathy. And having been on the other side of that this last year with my father passing away last January and helping my mom deal with all these things. And I'm sitting there with her and we're calling all these companies and things to get records straightened out and all that. And half of them were great and were very, showed some empathy and, hey, I'm sorry to hear about your loss. And others, it was like you didn't even say anything and they were just business as usual. And that's where I realized, boy, we've really got to train a lot of our agents on the empathy side of things.
That would be a great topic for us to do one session, is to talk about how we train real empathy and what real empathy is in the contact center and how you maintain that level of communication and also maintain the control of the call so it doesn't go on forever, ever and ever.
Right.
I think people are really, they don't know how to transition gracefully a lot of times.
Yep. No, that's definitely would be a good topic.
Yeah, I was just gonna add to that, guys, that exactly to that point, there's like, this is really kind of like a training, coaching, M&Ps kind of topic in my mind of, really making sure you have a documented process that involves, crisis call handling and active listening, empathy, calming, de-escalating, and making sure that there's, good knowledge and good teaching and good processes based around those flows and those skills that then you can put into play. And just speaking out loud, these days too, I know it's not that everyone has the luxury and the tools in place of having like an active analytics kind of platform, but it just comes to mind that that's another thing that you can have as a trigger, on a analytics platform, because you can have those analytics platforms trigger around keywords and certain phrases. And then that could essentially enable or push, to that agent a certain flow to reinforce those de-escalating empathy kind of practices and techniques. I'm just thinking out loud while it's a very interesting topic you bring up, Kay. But yeah, those are some things that come to my mind. It just reinforces the need for training and process and procedures around that, regardless of what tools you have.
Okay, I know you have a lot of questions. That's just not exactly where I thought you'd take us to start. So, okay, thanks, Jeff. I'm hesitant to ask for what the next question is.
Well, I don't want to preempt anybody else who's got pressing matters.
Can I jump in with one comment on that? I think that we also need to understand that agents may be uncomfortable with even addressing that. So going through just training or process improvement is great, but they have to deal with their own insecurities and their own phobias and fears. And so I think, it goes back to really caring about our employees and gig workers, that we're listening to them, because that's going to surface things in them as we start that kind of training, which I think is extremely important.
And that was one of the hardest things, Vicki, was for us to get them comfortable with asking the question, are you thinking about suicide? And that's when we went through all of the suicide training with competent people who train it all the time. They said, you've got to ask that question. And getting agents comfortable with recognizing when to ask it and comfortable with asking it was one of the most difficult hurdles for us to go through.
Yeah, and and Vicky, I think, exactly what you said is what was on my mind too, is it's like, even with the training, you're just going to have certain number of agents, probably 50+% of your agents are going to be just, no matter how much training you throw them, they're going to be uncomfortable with that situation. So what do you have that what do you have, or what can you put in place as a process procedure that immediately flags, alerts that, and engages another resource that or pushes and emphasizes a certain flow. But yeah, I think that is the bigger part of that challenge.
And
I don't have a specific use case I could give an example of, or else I would. I will ask around with the folks I work with these days and see if we have one, because Sestec, the company I work with now, has actually built crisis hotlines with as for information purposes and flow purposes. So I'll see if they have anything, but yeah, I wish I had even more.
The same hurdle that we're talking about with agents dealing with, these types of calls is when they're being harassed, especially sexually harassed. And I don't know why that is picked up, or if it's always been that way and we've just heard more about it. But helping the agent understand they don't have to stay in the conversation, but also how to get out of the conversation, not necessarily gracefully, but they don't have to keep going. And I heard from so many agents, well, we're being recorded and I don't want to say the wrong thing, and I don't want to turn the customer off, and I don't want to disconnect the caller, and are you going to penalize me for, and getting them comfortable with these kinds of conversations where they can take control and they can be comfortable with what they're doing. Again, it's just been an incredible investment in trying to understand what they're experiencing and how to get them through the hurdles. I don't know how many of us would be tremendously comfortable with dealing with a suicide call, or a call where we're dealing with a company's customer and they're sexually harassing me. How many of us would truly know how to take control of that and do it so that not necessarily on a sexually harassed, but our brand is communicated through that conversation.
Well, and sexual harassment is about personal perspective. What sexual harassment, I mean, there's obvious, right?
Yeah.
But then most of it's gray, and
Yeah.
and how you feel and how you react could be different than I react. And so how do you draw that line? And yeah.
And we
One
give
of
our,
the things. Go ahead.
I was just saying that we're B2B, and we sell boxes, so we probably don't hear those many types of calls, but it has come up to at least where we have some information available to reps. If it's something where there's a caller is having a mental health type issue, our reps can use their leadership. They can even use our security department as a resource. Obviously, we don't try to train them on how to handle it. We try to train them how to get other resources to help them. In the instance of a abusive caller, whether it's profanity, whether it's sexual harassment, we support our reps. They simply tell the customer that I'm uncomfortable with the language, and if you don't stop, I'm going to end the call. And they do it a couple times, and if they they can't just cut the call off, they'll give the customer a warning or two, and they're empowered to end the call.
That's great.
Yeah, I think if I could jump in real quick, we had a similar. I wasn't part of the process, but I know what you were speaking of, where it's just either the verbal abuse or the sexual harassment. They were told to try and de-escalate it as quick as possible, right, and try and deflect it and get back to the topic you can. If they didn't, after a couple of repeated warnings, they said you can tell them that, have a good day, I'm disconnecting the call, and hang up. And then we, on the back end, from a WFM perspective, and working with because it was commercial clients that we dealt with, so it was more the verbal harassment and screaming and yelling, and because they didn't like the way a claim was paid or something like that, we could actually go back to the company and block them from calling if we needed to, if it was bad enough. So again, John, back to your point, And I think others, we very much stood behind the agent. And there were, we did a lot of call calibrations or call reviews back in that time to help walk them through specific examples of how to de-escalate, how to work through some of those different scenarios on that side.
We have another topic that'd be a little more holiday-ish, a little lighter.
David,
Who
I'm
else
sorry.
wants to bring something to the party? Okay.
Hey, Dave, I have one to throw
Right.
out there. So just piggybacking off our conversation last month, with where we were talking about the customer experience and all the how you gather data and measurements and all that. I just would love to hear from the group on what do you have in place to do something with that data? How do you take the information you get from whether it be surveys or other method, and how do you impact positive change in your processes and your products based on what your customers are saying? So I'd love to hear from group on kind of what you have in place on that.
I'll remind people, sorry, 1 second. I'll remind people that a lot of the answers are coming through the chat session. So look both places. Go ahead.
So I was going to say one thing at Uline, we don't do surveys. What we do is we collect customer comments. So, and this is whether it's mostly phone calls, but it certainly can be through email. And a rep, we have it within the CRM system. If a customer is giving a testimony, if they're complaining about a delivery, if there's been a problem with a driver, if they're confused about pricing on our website, these things are getting, reps have kind of a target to hit about a dozen comments a week. We probably collect about 9,500 per week. And I have seen us, based on one comment, make some change to a process or a procedure. Part of it is a way to maybe close the loop on a service problem and maybe wasn't fully resolved on a collective basis, where we look, suggestions for a new product. Those are accumulated over the course of a year. And many times we add products to our catalog based on that. But, they're all, we collect them, they're categorized, and there are literally hundreds of people, throughout the company that read them in their respective departments. So that's the method that we use to keep our fingers on the pulse. Obviously, and there's a lot of manual plowing through them. So the opportunities that maybe AI provides us to do some, better and more productive data mining. But that's the methodology that we have found to be very useful at Uline.
Okay.
Michelle, you have something you want to jump in on?
Yeah, so there are two tools that I've used that I really like, and this is really to take your unstructured data, not so much the structured data, so the solicited feedback, but being able to mine everything that you are hearing in your contact center, everything that's happening from a chat perspective, what's in social media, what's in your reviews. And again, this is more on the B2C side of the house. One tool that I've used that I've really enjoyed is Spiral. That works very well in terms of being able to aggregate essentially the reason for the call, the challenge. It gives you sentiment analysis, sentiment on the issue as well. And that to me has been really helpful in being able to determine what's the next thing that I should be working on, from a organizational perspective, not just from a contact center perspective, but like in terms of voice of customer, bringing back to the organization and saying, hey, these are the top 3 things that are really pissing off our customers, or these are the top 3 things that we are hearing noise about, but maybe we only want to tackle one of them. And it also gives you sizing with it as well. The other one, Worthix has launched a relatively new product. I've only tooled around with it a little bit. I haven't actually implemented it. Spiral I've implemented before. Worthix is doing something very similar to what Spiral is doing. And they're also taking all of that data from that unstructured places and bringing it together. So those to me are 2 tools that can be used, both leveraging AI in order to extract value out of all of that incredible unstructured data that most organizations have.
Hey, Michelle, have you checked out Lumoa, Lumoa? They do something similar using
Never heard of them.
Yeah,
Hey, Michelle, go ahead. I was just going to say, Adam, you and Michelle, if you guys have a moment to kind of drop that in the chat, just the
Oh, yeah.
links or reference, that would be helpful for people looking at a future.
Okay.
If you can, Michelle, walk, talk, and type at the same time.
I can.
I know,
Just
I'm
don't ask me
jealous.
to chew bubble gum at the same time, because
That's
then I'm flat on my face.
Now, see, Kate, that's a topic. Pissing off customers. That's something that I wanted to get. That's more holiday oriented.
That's more fun.
I'll just add, I have used a door board before, and I don't love them. And I'm not here to disparage any vendor that's out there, but the opportunity that they have is they don't structure that output well enough. So like Spiral does a really good job of being able to aggregate, like, oh, my delivery is late, and oh, my shipment hasn't gotten here yet. And understanding that those two things are the same problem, versus a door board, as an example, would categorize those as two different problems. So it doesn't really give you as much insight and isn't able to aggregate it in an intelligent level to be able to do that. So
Yeah. Yeah, I just did this demo with Lamoa a couple weeks ago, and I was actually fairly impressed. I haven't used them either, but from what they showed me was that, it does real-time basic analysis all the way from, not only the live interaction that's happening with the rep, but also if you do like a trouble ticket, it'll take all of that information, kind of give you what the primary kind of pain points might be for the customer, and kind of give that in a unified dashboard type thing that everybody can take a look at and use across the company. So it looked like it was, again, Gen AI is prevalent throughout this whole process, but it looked like it could be a very useful tool, and does give you the sentiment analysis that, what I like about that is I saw this webinar the other day about Matt Dixon was on it, and he was talking about the fact that, just asking the customer to take a survey and, to answer some questions is already a lot of customer effort, right? So because people don't like taking surveys. So what I like about this Gen AI kind of sentiment analysis is that it can actually give you a good, insight into what the customer is perceiving, without having to kind of put them through all that, extra effort.
if I can add to that, Adam, I would even argue that, and I've said this in a lot of other places, that when you survey somebody, it's as if I went to a holiday party and I'm wearing the ugliest dress on the planet Earth, and I ask the people at the party, what do you think of my dress? And they all say, oh, you look so great. And then the moment you walk out of the room, they're trash talking me, right? So the value of the survey is somewhat limited in the sense of you're asking about a brand you just had an interaction with, and you're asking from the brand. So there's a little bit of a filter that happens on top of that, which is different than if I were just getting that raw feedback from social media, from the phone call itself. That's really what your customers think about you. And those are really the problems that they have. So I think these tools will be invaluable in terms of helping organizations really understand what customers think and where their challenges lie.
I agree. I think if you just listen to the call, you can tell where the problems are and, what the customer may be feeling, whether they tell you that or not in a survey. It's a good point.
Jeff, I know your hand's up, and I'm pretty sure it went up before. You're not going to share about a holiday dress problem, are you?
Nah, not just yet. Not just yet. No, just on this topic, a couple of things, and everything that was continued to be said just kind of reinforces this even more. It's like we just did. I mean, I'm working today with one of those analytics kind of companies that Michelle, like you're talking about, and Adam and so on. And we just did a proof of concept for a BPO, almost with a use case almost exactly like you're talking about, looking at NPS and CSAT scores and commentary on that. And does it align with actually what's happening in the interaction? And to your point, and the holiday dress thing, it's like you got someone who's scoring nice and saying, hey, they did well, and giving good comments, but then when you actually get the analytics from the actual interactions, it does not match up. It does not at all. So it kind of almost begs the question too, is there a point of why are we still even doing, in some of these cases, CSAT surveys and putting so much effort into that, when we could be putting the same amount of effort into analyzing the actual call and the sentiment, and whether it's positive or negative? So that's just something to think about. I mean, this literally was just like a month ago that we did this, and they were shocked. They're like, what your tool is spitting out. So we took the attached data of NPS and CSAT and tied it to the actual calls. They did not correlate at all. So very interesting. And then I just want to get back to David's point, because I think this was the most interesting point. Once this particular client, saw the data, they didn't know what to do with it. So to David's point of actioning, it's like, wow, you got all this great data, it doesn't match up. Something's obviously broken. We're working with them now to help them, turn it into an action. But there's a lot of these situations. I mean, and some of us been doing this a long time, short time, doesn't matter how much, but I think all of us could count on a hand or numerous hands how many times you've found good insights, good intel, good information, and then it never went anywhere.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that you're getting at, David, is like what is the way that people are doing that? And I was listening to a little webinar session yesterday on AI. It was a different subject matter, but what one of the speakers said kind of correlates exactly to what David's saying here. Until someone steps up and owns that, nothing's going to happen. So either you have to pick someone on your team to own it and drive that once you've identified it, or you have to go recruit a consultant like many that are here on this call to go take the lead and turn it into something if it truly has a business impact that's going to improve your ecosystem.
Yep, good
And
point.
that's what I wanted to say there. So
Jeff, let me jump in here. We got 10 minutes or so, a little more left. I want to reserve the last minute or two for some thank yous. A lot of you told me that you brought questions to the party. Feel free to dump them into the chat session for different perspectives and such. But those of you who haven't had a chance to jump in with a question yet, now is your time.
I just asked that. And I guess while people are thinking of their question there, just one additional thing. My goal is always to create the customer-centered culture in an organization. Part of what I found really helps there is if you set up a weekly meeting where you get department heads or people from different areas, or not even the leaders, but frontline employees, and you get together and you bring up the 5 biggest topics that you got in your feedback, and you have a dialogue, and you get people thinking outside of just what they do every day in their work, but they start thinking about it from the customer's perspective. That's really valuable. And that's, you don't have to take thousands and thousands of data points every week. You just take maybe your top 5 topics that came in on your survey, and you spend some time as a group, and then you log those in a CRM or something like that, and then you assign action items to them, and that's where you start really getting some value. And when a customer sees that something that they said in a survey turns into a improvement in a product or a service, boy, that's when you've got a loyal customer.
Yeah, and I would layer on top of that the benefit of doing it that way and involving other departments is typically when you're either in operations or in CX, you don't actually own the teams that can implement the change. You need other people in the organization to actually do that for you. So the best way to help them do that for you is to engage them in that conversation and in the solutions. And what I've found is if you come to the table and you say, hey, this is the problem that we've heard, we had a couple ideas, but we really want to get you, the subject matter expert, to weigh in on this. What do you think of our ideas? Then they come with a whole list of things and they're like, oh, we'll take this and we'll run with it. And you're like, all right, good. Now we can move on to the next topic. So totally agree with you that buy-in from other departments is so incredibly valuable.
Yeah, Covey has a great saying for this: no involvement, no commitment, right? So if you get them involved in the solution, they're going to be committed to the outcome in that process.
Lon, did you have something from the Magnet Group?
I do. It may take a little bit of time, but let me ask the group, do you guys have any success stories or positive case studies on AI in the voice channel right now? I know there have been a lot of successful implementations. A lot of people are using it, for data analysis or summaries, but specifically in the voice channel as part of call routing or conversational intelligence or voice bots. Just wanted to get that question out to the group. I know a lot of people that I talk to are wondering if now is the time to look at putting AI into the voice channel, or if it's really too early to be expecting real results in that form.
Lon, the only comment I would make is my experience has been so far that trying to figure out automation within chat first and then leveraging that in order to bring it into voice has been more effective. I can get learnings much more quickly and with less negative impact if something isn't going well than if I launch it in voice. And I seem to be able to have a greater capability, and maybe it's just the tools that I'm using to pull stuff down from a chat environment than I do in voice, in case something isn't going the way it needs to go.
I would agree with that 100%. There's a lot of companies, I think I've commented about that on here before, a lot of companies that don't pay attention to what they put out with chatbots, and it's not working for their customers. And if they don't pay attention to that, how are they going to get the voice channel right? Would be my question. Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
No, I was just going to say that we did exactly what they were just talking about. We had a web page that people could click to schedule a callback. So what we did is we put live chat on that first. And we experimented with that so that we could assess what people were actually going to talk. Then we put the bot in between that. But had we put the bot on first, we would have never been successful. And then based on the chat, we went into the voice conversational AI and said, okay, do we have the knowledge base that we can pull from, because we know what people are going to ask and what the subsequent questions are, that we can make it successful? And the answer is it's not that it's any less complex, because you're always going to find branches of logic that didn't work. But we were able to negate a lot of the issues that would not have been found first by chat, then looking at the chat bot, and then making it solely the person interacting on the voice for conversational AI. So we've been successful by routing it that way. And again, it's not easy. It is incredibly difficult to do and do well, so that the customer experience is as excellent as you always want it to be.
Great point. And thanks for all the comments in the chat as well. Who else wants to throw one more in here?
I do have a question.
Go ahead, Lauren.
Right now we're seeing just across the board about twice as many agents working at home than pre-pandemic. So your experiences with that, does that hold true for your experiences, and what have been the challenges? I know that's a wide open question that could take a whole lot of time, but just right off the top of your head.
Reactions. Yeah.
Are you asking, is the work from home or return to work, is that being more effective? Is that what you're asking?
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, it was interesting. The most recent client I had was 100% work from home, and they are now kind of starting to realize that they really like everybody back in. And it's, I think, a challenge because of the recruiting piece to that. People aren't really interested in, doing that as a model. And the feedback I got from the employees was, well, now I've got to add an hour worth of commute time to my day. And why are we doing that? They didn't really understand the purpose.
And I can go work for anyone.
Yeah.
Anywhere.
Yeah.
And work at home, if that's what I want to do.
And Michelle, you talked to JAG's team up at VSP when they finally apparently came to the decision that their two centers were not going to be pulling people back in. So are they at the other end of the spectrum?
Yeah, I think it's so interesting, though, to juxtapose this conversation with where we started the meeting, which is people are feeling lonelier and lonelier, and we're looking for more human connection. And yet at the same time, people are saying, I want to work from home. And what my personal experience has been literally for myself, as well as what I have learned from the work environments I've been in, is that people are actually they do better from a mental health perspective when they come in with some level of frequency, when they have that human interaction again. As much as they appreciate the convenience of being able to work from home and not to have to go into a physical location, it's almost like they don't recognize the value and benefit of it until they actually go there. So it's a hard one for sure, but I have definitely noticed that there are benefits to figuring out some way to do something that's in person.
Yeah, the article I read this morning was that hybrid is kind of going to be the focus for 2024.
Well, that's good to know from a topic matter.
I was just going to throw out there, I also had a really interesting conversation with a couple of, we were surveying a couple of PE firms, and it turns out that a lot of the push to go to physical location is because some of these private equity companies actually have physical real estate holdings. And it seems odd for them to say, hey, here we've got this really valuable physical real estate holding, but we're not actually requiring anyone to go back to work. So what I didn't realize is that some of the motivation behind some of the larger organizations or private equity firm organizations to push for being in person has to do with this kind of dichotomy that exists within their portfolio of companies. And that's why there's some of the push to being in person. It has actually nothing to do with the quality of the output from people and the greater level of efficiency. It's just they want to be consistent in the story that they tell when they're assigning value to their portfolio companies.
That's interesting.
I have heard it from one member who has 9 centers, and they're looking at opening a 10th. And I said, seems like where have you been? I mean, didn't you know we had a pandemic? Everyone went home. And it was the consistency of, well, if we start changing gears now, what's going to happen to the other 9 centers? So it's interesting. But Corey, you just literally turned your camera on.
Yeah, I was just going on that topic.
Go ahead.
On the staffing side of things, I recently ran a survey. I was just curious of just people in our database. So I think I sent it out to 1,000 people or got 1,000 responses, but 76% of the agents who had recently worked a call center job or are currently working one said that their preferred environment is remote, where only 4% of people said on-site preference. So I think just from that recruiting standpoint, it's here to stay. I definitely see the benefits of hybrid, but I work with a lot of contact centers that try hybrid. And they're like, well, we're not really happy with the quality that we're getting. And you open it up to remote and it's 1,000 times better. And they're like, these are all rock stars. So I just think that survey, I collected that data within the last 3 weeks. So it's pretty up to date of just still the majority want remote, which I think aligns with what we all think anyway.
Yeah. I think
Did you share that result somewhere, Corey, that we can reference?
I can share that. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great.
We have a chat box. You can throw it right in there if you'd like. Go ahead, Adam. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I think part of that has to do with, the companies really haven't embraced a productive way to approach hybrid environments. So like they're bringing people in the office, but they're not necessarily taking advantage of the fact that they're in the office and, maximizing the use of that time. And to Michelle's point, getting that connection with the right team members so that everybody does feel a sense of community and back in the office again. And I think the other piece to it too is, and Vicky, I know, has done a lot of work in this area around how to, create a inclusive environment with remote agents. And, time after time, I keep seeing these articles about how to really, include the remote agents. And most of what I see is the stuff that I think we should be doing in the office as well. We just need to do more of it consistently. And, I think it is a unique challenge, but I also think the solutions are the same.
Vicky, on top of that, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think the way that we manage has to change. And I think it needs to come from the top, and you have to re-engineer your leadership skills and your whole perception of leading people. And hybrid brings up another issue is, how do I gain visibility if I'm working at home and Mary's sitting next to the boss?
Yep.
And Mary's going to get more FaceTime, and I'm going to be left behind. So with the way we manage has to change, and it
You
has to
wouldn't
come from
happen
the
to
top.
know of a book or reference piece on that
Well,
topic?
I probably could come up with a book.
Could you put it in the chat?
I'd be happy to put it in the chat.
Thank you.
Real quick,
Thank
I
you.
think the other thing is on the training side. The difference in training virtually and on site
Yes,
is so
Yeah.
different. And I've been doing a lot of research on it and a lot of training on virtual, and you've got to really change the way your trainers train. It's a real change in process.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're still too PowerPoint oriented. We can't do that anymore.
Yeah, I know a unique
Excellent.
challenge that happens with hybrid, because I remember when workforce management or work from home first came out, I remember the head of Prudential customer service said this, was that it's really hard in a hybrid environment because of the communication issues. You think you may have told everybody this, but you realized, oh, that was in the office, not the people at home, and vice versa. So, it's really something that we have to keep really front of mind is our communication strategies while we're doing a hybrid environment.
Great point. We're going to wrap it up, except for John Jelenic. John, you have homework, because if you're retiring, I mean, I don't know, it's got to be some way to keep you looped in. I will post John's personal email for everyone so we can harass him starting on January 13th, I think you said.
Yes.
12th was your last day.
That'll be
Seriously,
fine.
we wish you the best.
Thank you.
The over-under on most males that retire from the contact center and care space is, it's 4 months. So within 4 months, you'll be bored out of your mind and begging to come back. But just know that as the group, we welcome you back. So
Well, Lon and I had our tearful goodbye a couple of days ago. I sent him all my contact information, so you can splash that wherever you want.
Fantastic. Thank you. We wish you well.
John. Thank you.
And to the rest of you, thanks for everything that you've done. We're going to continue on and do more next year. I will tell you that be looking by the end of Q1 for a new CCNG.com, and that's just not a new coat of paint on the same old bucket of bolts, but we're really taking a new direction to bring more information from more people, more members, to more members. So with a focus on referring and allowing people to bring people in easier, with a focus on getting down deeper into the organization. So we're not stuck at one level, but permeate. We understand, and we're doing a little bit of research on, the younger leaders, on what they're looking for may not be the same thing that John Jelenic is looking for as a strategic thinker on a senior leader. So, how can we address both groups more specifically? And of course, our academy team and the people that are involved and those that contribute. So, I mean it. Thank you very much for everything for this year. And I really look forward to next year. But I hope you all have a safe and wonderful holiday season. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
David.
you.
Bye,
You're welcome.
I have no idea what the
Thank
poll
you, guys.
result was, but we'll post it somewhere. So fear not. Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Bye.
Yeah.
Take care. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Bye-bye.